you go. Come to my party. Wendell, Lewis, sunglasses kid with no name, Hooter. Look who's alive!
It's been a little while since I've tuned in for a modern Simpsons episode, especially since making this video. Yes, who'd have thought that using an awful microphone that basically slows down your voice would gain this much traction? But frustrations aside, yes, it's been a while since I've watched The Simpsons. I've even been skipping out on the Treehouse of Horror stories of late, which I do try and keep on top of every year. And can you believe The Simpsons is now on its 36th season, with season 37 already confirmed? I genuinely don't know what it'll take for this show to end. It just won't stop. Sad as it may be, I think the passing of a prominent voice actor on the show would be reason enough to end the series, but then again, they would probably get replaced by AI at this point, so I doubt the series is ending anytime soon. But speaking of endings, ironically, the season 36 premiere episode is a parody of exactly that. What is the ideal ending for The Simpsons?
It's The Simpsons series finale!
I accidentally caught the episode by scrolling through Twitter of all places. Some rando posted the entire episode, and sadly it has now been deleted, but sometimes things do happen for a reason, and this definitely felt like one of those moments, because I wouldn't have bothered watching this episode otherwise, and I am glad to have seen it. And despite having not bothered to tune in for the show, I've read people's views on the series has changed in relation to the last couple of seasons. Apparently, season 33 onwards is actually watchable. And looking at this one episode, I genuinely say this was a very creative and unique story for a show that has been zombified for a good 15 years, if not longer. Seeing the writers essentially hold up a mirror to mock the show's current status speaks volume for being self-aware, but beyond that, I really enjoyed how this episode was paced. Editing some of the classic episodes was really fun to see, and although fan service is usually considered lazy and uninspired, I think when done correctly, it does have a lot to offer the audience. I don't usually feel nostalgic for anything as such, but I wholeheartedly respect the callbacks to the golden era of the show, and despite the story being centered around a deliberate fourth wall break, it's great to see a Bart-centric storyline that gave him prominence over everybody else. He was the center of this story, fighting a fictional AI that's designed to end the series, that's apparently animating the show in real time, constructing this ending. And pushing the idea that this episode is indeed the end of the show as we know it. Obviously that is not the case. Even if interest in the show is not what it was, there's clearly still an audience for The Simpsons. Otherwise, somebody would have surely unplugged the life support by now. One would think, anyway.
I wish I was dead. Hey.
With that said, the episode begins with a red carpet event welcoming various celebrity cameos from guest stars who have featured on the show previously, plus we have the musings of Conan O'Brien to appreciate, hosting this so-called event, which is quite sweet considering how he was a writer on the show for several years in the early 90s, and true fans know which episode he is arguably most famous for.
Donuts. Is there anything they can't do?
Appearing at first as more of a clip show, I love these callbacks to some of the earliest episodes, and how Fox has apparently been trying to end the show basically since the very beginning. Again, this is obviously not true considering how the series has been the ultimate cash cow for years, but I loved seeing these older episodes altered for the sake of comedy, even retaining the same animation style and the 4:3 aspect ratio, and the alterations made to the classic episodes like Bart the Daredevil and King Size Homer really cracked me up, especially the latter involving the entire town of Springfield being destroyed unnecessarily. With the level of pressure it must take to end a long-running series like The Simpsons, the writers implement AI to do the job for them, introducing Hack GPT, a machine that's been loaded with the knowledge of all TV show finales and all the Simpsons DVDs, and I was honestly surprised by this shot, because the level of detail is honestly hilarious. I'd say this is definitely a moment aimed at fellow collectors, and as somebody who luckily does own the first 20 seasons on DVD, the level of detail here is admirable, right down to a handful of these sets being the limited edition variants, like the horrible Homer and Marge clamshells, or the slightly less horrible 3D Krusty the Clown head, credit where credit's due, the animators did their homework. With the AI performing the necessary calculations, it comes up with a pretty generic sounding story revolving around Bart Simpson's 11th birthday party. Homer forgets to post the invitations, causing an argument between him and Marge, which evolves into an estranged plot about the couple working to improve their marriage. And I will also mention that Marge's voice does make watching any new Simpsons episode extremely difficult. It's just so sad to hear Julie Kavner try so hard, but her voice has changed so significantly. Of course, she's been doing this, bless her, for over 30 years, to a point where the character now sounds as though she smokes 50 a day, and you can definitely hear certain voices on the show have changed due to age, but Marge is for sure one of the most prominent.
Oh, homie.
Bart is frustrated about handing out the invitations himself at the risk of his birthday party being ruined before it even begins.
You ran billions of computations, and that's what you come up with?
I really enjoy these continued meta scenes throughout, where Conan is then confronted by AI network executives. Seems kind of familiar to another Matt Groening show, albeit less colourful. When Bart gets to school, he's shocked by a sudden announcement where it's apparently Principal Skinner's last day as principal, beginning a trend of wrapping things up neatly, where the students are dismissed as Skinner switches off the lights and walks away. And this is a running gag throughout the episode that only Bart appears to notice. There's a similar situation for Homer at work, where Mr. Burns pulls a silly prank on Smithers and his entire workforce, where Smithers makes an announcement that Burns has passed away, leaving his entire fortune to all of his employees, which is not true. The joke then backfires when Homer accidentally pushes him into a vat, killing him, whereby the fake will becomes legally binding, resulting in a huge payout for everybody. Even the guy with the giant hand is happy.
I am tired of these jokes about my giant hand.
Bart is then a witness to this conclusive moment and continues to skate around Springfield, witnessing moments and happy endings all over town, where even John Cena makes a cameo appearance to deliver comic book guy on Kamiko's baby.
You can't see me. You can't see me.
All of these significant changes and conclusive moments start to upset Bart, who cannot stand the idea of change to this extent. And so, in the typical Bart Simpson fashion, he starts to rebel against the AI, even breaking the fourth wall himself and yelling that nothing is changing. And he becomes self-aware and rejects the finale story in favour of everything staying the same. And just like any generic sitcom, he wants it all to remain and for it to reset at the end. It's funny to see him witness so many positive changes, and if some of these had actually happened years ago, the show may have grown with the audience more prominently and retained its relevance, rather than going stale, but that would go against the rules of the typical sitcom reset trope. And it's a bit too late now to be making so many significant changes that really could have happened 20 years ago to spice things up. In one last effort to keep the familiar Springfield he knows and loves, Bart visits Krusty the Clown, who he feels will never change. But even the Krusty show is coming to an end, and despite the series being a small part of The Simpsons lore, they played a clip show for some of Krusty's best moments across their series, and it's genuinely quite sad looking at this objectively. But hoping to ruin the finale so it will never air on television, Bart decides to moon the audience, hoping that this will be enough to keep the show from ending, but instead, we quick cut to the police station where Bart is now being held in a cell. Lisa was strangely missing from a lot of this episode, but I really like this heart-to-heart talk Bart shares with her. Everyone is changing for the better, moving on with their lives, and I feel this is something even the audience can take something from. Change is a huge part of life as we know it. It's scary and uncertain, but there's one certainty we can hold on to, and that's the memories we hold dear from our past experiences. And Lisa tries to shift her brother's way of thinking, but he's just too stubborn to see. And using Bart's birthday as a metaphor for change, he either accepts the change like everybody else and turns 11 years old, or he can stick to his comfort zone and remain 10 years old forever, which is exactly what he does.
10! I stopped it.
Breaking away from the story at this point, I love how the rebellious side of Bart was enough to best the most advanced AI, and with it failing to complete the task due to The Simpsons resetting instead of ending, it self-destructs. And of course, again, this is not the final episode of The Simpsons, despite many feeble news outlets baiting you into thinking the show had indeed aired its last episode. Nope, this was the season premiere of season 36, and I'll be honest, it's one of the best things to come out of The Simpsons in a very long time. I think that's going to do it for this one-off look at the current state of The Simpsons. Overall, a surprising experience, and if this level of quality remains consistent, I may tune in for a few more episodes. We shall see. But please do leave me a like if you enjoyed this breakdown and review. Comment below, what did you think of the episode? Are you still an avid viewer of the show? As always, I love hearing your thoughts and opinions, and for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?